think one of the most important things about having a special needs child is that parents' initial response is, I just have to get through this and hang on for a little while. But the reality is that having a child with special needs is often more like a marathon than a sprint, and that means different ways of coping with your own needs as a caregiver.
Thank you, Kathy. 11 years ago, I started Soaring Words because 14 years ago, there were 3 experiences with death and illness that happened in my family. My only sibling died suddenly of an asthma-induced heart attack, and my father had cancer, and my oldest son was catastrophically stricken with rheumatic fever, and this happened in a 10-month period, which was a very scary and harrowing time for our family. And during that time, it struck me that attitude and feeling loved and supported is an integral part of healing, and that's really the impetus for Soaring Words, to inspire parents of ill children or special needs children that strength and greatness is inside of each person and each child, and that we are responsible for each day working towards and moving towards things that could be positive and can enhance our energy and give us hope, or focusing on the crushing and really overwhelming facets about caring for someone with a serious illness or a special need. And I just wanted to share my personal experiences with you so that you appreciate that I understand what you are going through. And first of all, and also to say that having spent many, many hours in hospitals all around the country, in clinics and speaking at schools, a lot of the issues that we're talking about are designed to really help give you that strength and support to take time for yourself in addition to caring for your child and the rest of your family. So we want to just congratulate you all for coming today and for joining us on your computers. That in and of itself is a gift that you've given yourself. And we want you just to really sit back and relax and don't multitask and just really take this gift in for you from us.
So our first topic is that you are not alone. More children are recognized today as having a disability or a chronic illness than ever before, with nearly 20% of children at some point having a chronic or serious illness. More than 15% of school children having some kind of disability, and the recent statistics for autism spectrum disorder of 1 out of 88. I think when children are young, parents are often very focused on the idea that maybe their children will grow out of this. And sometimes this happens, but it doesn't always happen. And often a more useful way of focusing is how can we do the best for our child to give this child the most help and help this child be the most that he or she can.
Today we're going to share success strategies and real-life examples of effective caregiving that will help you get some breathing room and also to realize your dreams and maybe grab a few moments for yourself and your own enjoyment. In our experience, families who are thriving are the ones that say, we're going to make this work, we're going to have a normal life, and we're not going to let this define our whole family. This isn't going to be the one thing that's going to define us.
But sometimes this normal is a new normal, and often families do have to shift around things. They do have to change in order to make a normal functioning household. Being organized, having backup plans, preparing for events before they happen, can give a child, the child's siblings, and you a greater probability of success. And I was just thinking of a family that comes to see us in our center, and initially it was quite hard to get the child out of the car and into our center because he wasn't quite sure what was going to happen to him. But we have a really nice sidewalk leading from the parking lot to our center, and the family brought the child's helmet and his scooter and the dad's scooter, and they just scooted their way to the center. So this was a wonderful lead-in to getting him indoors, and now he loves to come.
The first step is really taking an honest look at what is working and what isn't working in your life and what's difficult for you as a caregiver. And when you look at those pain points, then you can start to address them. And also to look at where your support comes from and how can you get more structure and support into your life. So the first success strategy that we're going to share is grabbing 2% of the day for yourself. Yeah, right. I know what you're thinking. How could I possibly grab 2% of the day or any time of the day for myself? But I'm telling you, and we're telling you, we're giving you permission that this me time that you take will give you more strength, more clarity, more calm, so that you can be a more effective caregiver or parent to your child with special needs. And you'll also feel that you're retaining a little bit of yourself for yourself. Here's the catch. During this 2% of the time that's me time, you can't cheat and do laundry or errands or make medical appointments. It has to be doing something like taking a warm and luxuriant bath or reading a pleasure book or something, calling a friend, meeting somebody, getting your hair cut. But it can't be spent doing errands and other things that are on your ever-growing to-do list.
So the goal is to take 30 minutes a day for yourself. So again, this is less than 2% of the day. But you can also start with 10 minutes or 5 minutes and gradually work up, just to get there if this feels uncomfortable.
So if you want to take the best care of your child, you need to just take a little care of yourself. And if you can't physically leave the place with which you're caregiving, just try to do these other things that are distractionary. But what we do recommend is actually putting on your coat, standing up, and just walking around the block for 10 minutes, as Kathy said, or physically just going somewhere where you could turn your cell phone off and you could just be on your own. We're both giving you permission to do this. And naturally, you may feel guilty at the time that you do this, but take the time anyway. And eventually, you'll appreciate how much you need this time and how much your mind and your body enjoys the gift of this time and how much better you'll be as a caregiver going forward.
Our next suggestion is to make a plan. Map out your time in a strategic way. What do you want your normal routine to look like? Create a plan for a day, a week, or a month that helps you be as organized as possible. And you may feel like you just don't have time to get organized, but it's worth the time to step back and organize what you want to focus. And again, I'm thinking of a family that I know who really wanted to take their young daughter who had autism out to dinner. But she really couldn't tolerate just walking into a restaurant. So what they did was they went out to the restaurant, talked to them, picked a restaurant like an Applebee's that they thought could accommodate her, talked to the people at the restaurant about the fact that they were going to bring her, got copies of the menu, went and laminated the copies of the menu, cut out the pictures of the foods, practiced with her sitting at home what she would need to do, and then walked into that restaurant ready, and she was able to do it. And this was such a source of pride for her and a real achievement for the whole family that couldn't have been done without planning.
Thanks, Kathy. That's such an inspiring story. And it really shows that taking that time to map things out and to be strategic will give you the payback on the back end of it. And what we recommend is doing this the old-fashioned way, not with electronics, just taking a piece of paper and a pen and writing down the 7 days of the week, just like you see on the slide, and then putting in what are the most important things that you'd like to make sure there's time for, and then putting the other things in as well. And you'd be surprised that when you wrap your head around this exercise and then share it with your significant others and eventually with the whole family, it becomes a real bonding experience and an opportunity for everyone to feel part of creating this plan, which also will give your children with special needs a sense of control, ownership, boundaries, which all is very helpful and productive. So some of the questions to ask yourself when you're doing this exercise are, what are the priorities really? And then what are the priorities for the whole family? And you've all heard of identity theft, when somebody takes your credit card or your personal information and uses it. But there's something else called identity drift, which is that it's the normal tendency of a caregiver to spend so much time, all of their energy, caring for their child with special needs that there's nothing left for you. And by having a schedule and incorporating routines and hobbies and things that you love and the other members of your family really enjoy, it will help you get back to this feeling of being at one with yourself. And it's really essential to schedule time with other people in your life as well. When my father was in the hospital recovering from a stroke, my mother is very devoted to Dad and was always there every day, all day. So I felt that it was my obligation and my honor to be with Dad at nighttime, to spend the night in his hospital room with him. And at the time, my youngest son was 11 years old. And that meant that in the mornings when he woke up before going to school, I wouldn't be there to have breakfast with him and to, get him ready and get him to the bus to go to school. So it was important for me to carve out a ritual that I would call the house every morning and have that conversation with Joshua and ask him how he slept, ask him what he had for breakfast, so that he would have that emotional connection with me, and also to leave a little extra time at nighttime to make sure that, he was in bed and, that we had spent some time together at dinner with the rest of the family so that when I went back to the hospital, it wouldn't be so disruptive for him. It's taking the time to know what's important in your family routine, where the points of great tumult and a lot of activity are, to make sure that you can be with your children when you need to and how you need to show up.
Once you have these strategies, I think it's also important to sometimes review them, reevaluate and tweak them, because sometimes they take a life on of their own. So back off after a while and say, what could I do differently or better to make a different routine for my family and me? In addition, I think we just can't overestimate the value of sleep and routines and rituals that soothe, from listening to music, breathing, or anything that helps you relax. I think as someone who spent 3 months fighting off a premature labor, I have an automatic reaction to someone who says relax, because I listen to people yell at women in labor saying, relax, relax. But I think it is important to find a time and a way to relax, to let yourself relax. And this is not easy, but it's of critical importance. Special needs children also really benefit almost always from structure and routine. And that's true of actually all children and many of us. It gives us a sense of comfort, a sense of control, and for special needs kids, it often gives them a way to anticipate what's going to happen and gives them more awareness of what their choices are in terms of what's happening to them. There need to be boundaries, rules, and actions taken that help a child not take up all the air in the family all the time. And this is not something that hurts the child, but helps the child. You aren't doing anything beneficial for your child if that child feels the whole world revolves around him or her. So I think once you've set up strategies, you also do want to back up and say, what could be better here? And what should I do differently? And what's changed so that we might want to reconsider?
Excellent. A pressing question among many parents is, how can I effectively parent each one of my children?
One of the most difficult situations for families with a child with autism or sometimes other disabilities is what happens when the child's siblings' friends are uncomfortable around the child with autism. And I think here, families work out a number of different strategies that range from moving on to other friends, just saying, look, we're going to be friends with people who do accept our child, to being realistic and saying, we just have to figure out how the one child can have relationships where the other child isn't intruding. Sometimes setting up routines here can be helpful. So having a routine so that the child with autism does come out and say hi to your other child's friends, but then knows that they do have to back off, just as you would say to a younger child who wants to be right in there with this big brother. Another thing may be to have particular activities that the child with autism can do, such as playing Zengo or doing puzzles with the other children, but then again, giving them some space. It's also very important to encourage the siblings to tell you what they're thinking and help them identify their feelings by naming it, saying, it sounds like you're frustrated that Sarah doesn't want to play with you right now, or that Sarah wants to play with your friends. And if you have the feeling that something is wrong, ask the child. It's all right to guess what they're thinking, but then say, is this what you're thinking? And let the child correct you. On the whole, the higher expectations you have for your children, the better they will behave.
It's important to stay connected with your children with daily routines and also in doing things together. But it's also important to spend time with each of your children separately or one-on-one. And helping your children have fun together is also something that every parent struggles with, or every parent aspires to, having that fantasy moment where everyone's sitting around the hearth, eating marshmallows, making a puzzle, and everyone's just playing perfectly. Well, I guess what we wanted to say is for families with special needs children, why should your family be different than any other family? Which is to recognize that there are things such as sibling rivalry and different moods and emotions that often get in the way and don't give us these picture-perfect moments. So we just want you to really fully appreciate that as well.
So when looking at your child's behavior, try to tune into the feeling behind those behaviors. And remember, all feelings are acceptable. All behaviors are not, but feelings are acceptable. And it's fine for your other child to be angry or frustrated, and you want to accept that and figure out how to deal with it.
There's also many organizations that have family fun days or activities with other families with special needs children, and this is so helpful with the siblings and for the children to have these opportunities to socialize with other peers in a safe and controlled environment. So we invite you to check those out. And the JCC of North America has many, many wonderful programs at the local JCCs that are really open to everybody in the community.
The next theme is you can't protect your children from life. Kids have built-in radar. They notice things, especially when adults are trying to hide something from them. That's why it's really important to share age-appropriate facts in an honest, loving, and non-alarming way. Many times parents ask me, should I tell my other children, or what should I say about his brother or sister having autism or another developmental delay? And I think that it's very important to be straightforward and not overload information, but not act like this is something that you're ashamed of or something that's so complicated that the child can't possibly understand. When you hit something that's unexpected or disappointed, you need to acknowledge that something has happened with your child and then move forward.
And it's so important to validate these feelings, to let them know that it's normal to have these feelings and that they can always come to you to talk. And also you want to stay connected with your children throughout the day. Maybe you want to call the school and let them know that such and such incident happened so that they have the context, that their advisor and their teacher knows what's going on. That also will give your child the extra confidence and support that they need. And let them know if you physically can't be with them, that you're still with them emotionally, and that when you come back at the end of the school day. We'll talk about this at dinner time so that they know that you're there for them. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. Whenever you fly on a plane, you hear the steward say, before putting on the oxygen mask of your child, make sure you put it on yourself. So we're calling this the rule of the oxygen mask. And we think that this simple rule is counterintuitive for caregivers, because it's natural for parents who are caring for children and special needs children to want to do everything for the child, to always put the child first, often to the detriment or exclusion of any of your needs and wants. But the fact is that your caregiving will be very short-lived if you end up driving yourself to exhaustion and never doing anything for yourself. And if you ignore yourself completely, then you won't be of any benefit to your child or to yourself.
Once you get used to the idea of the rule of the oxygen mask, your body will tell you when you're neglecting it. Everyone listening probably knows what I'm talking about, where you have a particular part of your body. I mean, I know I find myself gritting my teeth, but you might tense your shoulders or your back and know that your stress level is off. And this is a time to step back and figure out how are you going to put on that oxygen mask for you and get yourself ready before you tackle everything for everybody else.
So we have some quick and easy suggestions that will give you immediate support to take better care of yourself. The first is to nourish your body with healthy food and water. Today, so many grocery stores and supermarkets sell ready-made convenience foods or prepackaged vegetables and fruits. And again, it doesn't take a lot of time to just chop all this stuff up and put it into Ziploc bags throughout the day that you can be feeding yourself and remembering to take care of yourself. We're really talking about healthy non-processed foods because those are the ones that are going to give you the most energy and also reduce the great stress of caregiving. And it's a fact that extreme stress can cause dehydration, so it's essential that you keep yourself well hydrated throughout the day, drinking lots of water. Soda, caffeine, and other very sugary beverages and foods can actually increase your stress level, but because afterwards you could crash. But if you drink lots of water, that should also kind of balance things out for you. And nothing's more rejuvenating than taking a warm bath or shower or swimming or just being in nature, being near water. I think I was a dolphin in a former life. But just making sure that while you're doing these things, you're conscious of what you're putting in your mouth.
Another strategy is to make a space for yourself. I know that when you spend lots of times in hospitals or doctor's offices or outpatient clinics, you probably aren't in the most calm, tranquil setting. But it's okay to look around and find a space where you can sit outside, a space where you can be a corner, where you can be in the doctor's office, and take your own things to read so that you are basically making your space. In addition, you can create little tiny small rituals or things to do that just make your life more pleasant. How things smell, spray on some perfume. You may be going to the doctor's office, but if you're happy about how you smell, that may make your life better. Music, load up your iPhone and get those earphones out just like the teenagers. Focus on breathing is also important. Your breath is going with you wherever you're going, and that's always something useful to think about. What am I doing with air? Books and magazines, and even at home, identifying one small space that's yours, whether it's a corner in your bedroom or your kitchen, or something where nobody else goes in, can be really important, especially for mothers.
By the way, you smell fabulous. Getting professional help is a tremendous sign of strength, whether talking to a counselor, a chaplain, a religious leader, a social worker, or a caregiving support group. If the first person that you reach out to isn't helpful, if you don't feel that there's a good connection there or that you can't really relate to this person, please find somebody else. Because when you do find somebody, it might take a few tries, but when you find the right person, it can just be such a safety valve for you and give you such a tremendous feeling of being heard and being seen and being held by a professional who can help you.
The next point is also really important. If you're experiencing any physical symptoms, or you really feel overwhelmed, or think you might be depressed, it's very important to go to your doctor and schedule an appointment. Equally important, it's critical to stick to your routine physical checkups and dental appointments. Doing this, missing these kinds of things, can cause great problems later on that you don't want to inflict either on yourself or your family.
Sadly, many people turn to drinking or drugs, recreational drugs, or over-medicating themselves with prescription drugs to reduce the stress of stressful situations. And it's important not to use drinking or prescription drugs to kind of to block you from these feelings or to help you cope as a caregiver. So if you find yourself in this situation again, it's very important to seek professional help.
And last, again, don't underestimate the importance of sleep. It's a fact that a good night's sleep and even a 15-minute nap has restorative healing properties. Get yourself a good eye pillow so you can close your eyes, and if you need to, fight for the time, even 15 minutes, to go lie down. Tell yourself if you don't fall asleep in 15 minutes, you'll get back up, but read, relax, and try to sleep.
There's been so much proven about the therapeutic value of those 15-minute cat naps.
Yep.
That really are restorative on a cellular level. Yep. So our next discussion is about food. Basically, you are what you eat, and every bite that you put in your mouth or that you don't put in your mouth makes an impact. And there's a reason why they call some foods comfort foods. So, people are using food to fill in the void. Maybe you're feeling a little sad, maybe you're a little bored, maybe you're a little anxious. So it's important to not eat unless you're really hungry. And Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who's the author of Eat to Live and a collaborator with Soaring Words, he recommends 3 meals a day and just really, eating and feeding yourself and nourishing yourself and looking to foods like vegetables and seeds and nuts and mushrooms and onions and healthy foods like that to give you a lot of stamina. And the more energy you have, the better that you'll feel, and also the more strength you'll have to be a loving and effective caregiver. Your body needs to move, and exercise will keep you healthy and strong.
Find a way for your child to get some exercise as well. Your child will be happier if he or she gets to move. Can your child go for a walk, run, or bike with you? Is it something you can do together? If there's any way for you to exercise with your child, this is a win-win situation. Sometimes it may not be great exercise for you, but at least you get to go outdoors or be part of what your child is doing. If you can't, you have a powerful modeling opportunity showing your child that you're going to go out in the morning for a run or go for a swim.
That's so true. And endorphins produce serotonin, which is known as the happy hormone, which is why we hear things like the runner's high. It's your body's chemistry being altered, giving you that natural energy boost. And most caregivers think that I don't have the time to exercise. And I know many of you are saying, yeah, right, Lise, there's no way that I'm going to get up and do that or do that at the end of a long day, squeeze another thing into my to-do list. But this 10 or 15 or 20 minutes of getting your cardio aerobic heartbeat up you will feel a definite change in your body. If you do this for a few days and then a couple of weeks, you will get hooked on that endorphin rush, and you'll find that it will actually carry out throughout the whole day, giving you more energy. So we have a really short list of some pointers. Maybe you want to park a little bit further away from the destination you're going to, or maybe you want to just try to do a 10-minute walk in the morning or at the end of the day. Maybe you want to take the stairs instead of the elevator, or you could recruit a friend or another parent and do some exercise together, because that can help you stick to making sure that it happens when it's on someone else's calendar as well as yours.
When you give exercise a priority, you not only do this for yourself, but you're also a really good role model for your child.
The next topic you're going to love. It's called Let It Go, Eliminate Toxic Influences from Your Life.
Let's take an example of a grandparent who perhaps unintentionally is very critical. When they say, for example, I don't understand why you don't just make him behave, or I don't understand why you're so tough on her, it's all right to say, I don't want to talk about this. And then say, this is what would help me. Or just say, look, let's not talk about this today. Sometimes having a third party who can remind a grandparent that the best thing he or she can do is support you, their child, in their parenting is really helpful.
When you're a caregiver, you have a great excuse to discard anything in your life that isn't really serving you anymore. Energy drainers, time zappers, toxic people. There's a long list of things that are really depleting you. And you can easily just say to someone, I would love to get together with you, but I just can't possibly do that because of my schedule. You really don't have the luxury of having these negative influences weighing down on you. And we are giving you permission to let go of these influences from your life whenever possible. And we're also giving you permission to try to let go of the idea of being perfect. Because first of all, nobody is. And second of all, the sooner you get rid of this unrealistic expectation, you'll feel so much relief. So it's really about letting go of unrealistic expectations and at the same time, not giving up on your dreams. If you do have future goals and aspirations, that's wonderful. They just might not happen in the exact timing that you want them to happen, but it's really helpful to have you have something to look forward to and to move towards. There's another important topic to discuss, and that's how often do people think before they speak? And as you can see from some of these statements here, we've just pulled together a little list. I know just how you feel, or it's God's way, or you have to be strong for your child. It's meant to be. Is there anything I can do? Just call me. Oh, except next Tuesday I'm doing this, and next Friday I'm doing this, and Wednesday and Thursday aren't too good either.
Realize that sometimes your friends just don't know what to say, but they would help if you guide them. You can help create the tone and teach your friends and families what they can do to support you. Sometimes let them know what you need and give them a chance. And if it doesn't work, then you can move on.
And it's important, what we're talking about, sometimes it's not the words that they're saying, because we are giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, even though we are putting all of this communication under the heading of thinking before you speak. We know that it's hard for people to talk about special needs. It's hard for people to talk about illness or situations that make them feel uncomfortable. So we're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, but sometimes it's the tonality. So for example, saying, how's Frank doing? As opposed to, hey, how's Frank doing? How are you doing? It's the same language, but said in a different way. So it's kind of easy to make a course correction, and most times we're assuming people aren't aware of how they're communicating.
The next suggestion is to create a circle of support. Who were the friends you had before your child's diagnosis that you still have? Who are the friends and family who have stuck with you?
You don't have to do this alone. Caregiving is hard work, and it's very isolating, and it takes a lot out of you.
Don't be afraid to ask for help and let others help you. Often people want to help.
We want you to create a safe space that supports you and where you can share best practices and wisdom. What do we mean by safe space? It means paying attention to only sharing your most vulnerable thoughts, fears, aspirations with someone who can meet you where you are and isn't going to fix it or judge it or make you feel worse than if you hadn't shared with them in the first place.
The right therapist or counselor can help you express your feelings and can listen to you outside of your family. In addition, support groups, particularly those that are facilitated by a professional, can give you insights and sometimes help you build a community.
Online communities are wonderful with a very important caveat that sometimes people will share horrific anecdotal stories that may or may not even be true, and that can actually traumatize you. So if you are going to go to online communities, make sure they're from a reputable organization and that they're moderated, and just make sure that you don't believe everything that you read on the internet.
Our next suggestion is express your feelings. Let the people that you're working with know how you're feeling. Don't keep things bottled up. I was recently working with a family that had 3 small children and a grandmother who was very actively involved helping the mother. The parents were very competent and listened and tried out everything I suggested, and after I would see them, I would send them an email summarizing what we'd done and making further suggestions. One time, I got an email back from the mother saying she was so stressed right now and so overwhelmed with so many people telling her what to do that she felt completely inadequate. I realized I'd contributed to this. I'd been sending her emails saying, try this, try that, try this. And because she was such a good listener, I was just piling on the advice and hadn't watched or listened to the fact that I needed to slow down and that I was making her feel worse rather than better. So it was actually really good that I caught her at a time when she was able to say to me, this is too much, and I need to slow down for a minute.
You want to give yourself time to get in touch with your very real emotions: shock, sadness, anger, grief, loss, guilt, fear, or loneliness. And don't try to suppress these feelings or deny them. If you can find a safe space, whether that's going for a walk around the block or going to the gym or spending time in the bath or just by yourself, meditating, praying, just to really let these feelings bubble up and express themselves and come out, because if you keep them in, it's just going to not help the situation, and it's probably going to make you feel much worse.
It's useful to think, how can I understand my own feelings and recognize that these will change over time. It's also a sign of strength, if you feel you need it, to seek professional help. Spiritual leaders, doctors, and sometimes even close friends or relatives can listen to your feelings and give you useful feedback, which can help you process and understand your feelings more. And if they're not listening in a helpful way, teach them and let you know what you need. Let them know what you need. You can say, I would really love it if I could just tell you how I'm feeling and you could just listen. Don't feel like you have to make comments. Just listen.
Let's talk about fun. Fun is possible and necessary. And Kathy has just a really funny anecdote that just thinking about it is making her get choked up.
I mean, I think the reality is that often families and I have a great time because funny things happen. And one of the families that I know was recently walking down a street and went by a hot dog vendor, and the little boy with autism wanted a hot dog, and the parents said, "No, those are that man's hot dogs." And the little boy then went and grabbed a whole bunch of hot dogs and took them to the man and said, "Here, here are your hot dogs." Well, in fact, this was quite funny. Even though it wasn't exactly appropriate, it was remediable. They could buy the 3 hot dogs, and it was amusing. And I think the parents were torn because they didn't want to laugh too much, because they didn't want the child to feel like this was something he should do again. On the other hand, it was funny. And I think sometimes just enjoying your child's jokes, or the funny things that happen to all of us.
You'll be amazed how much fun you can have with just a little ingenuity, having family movie night or funny hat night, or just, getting bubbles and doing that, just shaking it up a little bit, watching a favorite movie together, something that your whole family can do together, just that's fun and not, let's get ready for tomorrow and let's lay out your clothes for school and let's do homework. It's just a chance to be together and be enjoying each other's company.
I think music is a real source of joy here. And I think anything you can do so your child can participate in music, so not just listen, but dance, or play an instrument, or bang on a drum, and that you enjoy together, is a source of strength.
And it's great to invite your friends to share in the fun also. You can invite them to send you emails or jokes and funny things that they hear about. And also you could have jokes that you share with your family at dinner or when you're together. Because when you laugh, there's a lot of tension in the jaw. There's like 7,000 muscles there, and just to release that tension, it's so great, and it changes the whole energy and the whole dynamic.
And I don't think don't feel guilty when you're having fun. You deserve to have fun, and lots of things are truly funny. I work with a little boy who makes constant jokes, and they're hysterical. He's only 2, and he already figured out how to say cuddle down instead of cuddle up. And just the fact that he noticed this, and this was really funny, I think is a source of joy for all of us.
And it's also important to celebrate accomplishments, which maybe for other children would not even be something that would be discussed, but for your child is a major, major accomplishment. To really just make a big deal about that, and to really revel in that, and to really celebrate that, not looking at what still has to be accomplished or what perhaps may never be accomplished, but just saying, wow, this is such a great thing, and really making a big deal about it will give everyone so much joy and pride.
My eyes got out of order.
We also want to tell you something very significant, which is that crying is a healthy release. And we want to give you permission to cry, because you can express overwhelming emotions that you're carrying and release them. And actually, when you cry, there's a positive chemical benefit. So when you're chopping onions and your eyes start tearing, which is actually quite annoying, there's no chemical or there's no physical benefits to that. But when you're crying because you're just releasing emotions or you're experiencing deep emotions, your body is releasing toxins. And that's why humans are really the only species that does cry, and it's connected in some way to evolutionary survival.
It's important for children to see that their parents do have a range of emotions, which includes happy and sometimes unhappy. And although you don't want to show your child emotions when you're feeling really out of control, it's important to get control. It's also fair to let them see, for example, if you're angry or if you're unhappy, when you're feeling in control, because they need to know about those feelings too. You also want to make sure that a child doesn't think it's his or her fault. You don't want them to think, you are sad because you screwed this up.
We want to invite you to shut out the world and go inward. So let's focus for the next 60 seconds. We're going to do a little centering exercise here. Please put both feet on the ground and close your eyes. And we want you to slowly breathe in and breathe out, and we're going to do this 3 times. So breathe in, breathe out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. Excellent. You can open your eyes now and notice how you feel. We just spent less than 60 seconds, and you can practice this exercise anytime, just not when you're driving or working farm equipment. But if you feel overwhelmed, you see how quickly you can change the dynamic that's going on inside of your body.
It's also important to have some time when you turn electronics off. Not only 2-year-olds need to have limited screen time, but all of us need to have some time when our phone is not on, and other electronics are not calling us and asking us to do things. It's worth it to give yourself some reflective time each day, some time to sit and have a cup of tea or coffee, time to walk around the block without an agenda. It could be 5 minutes when you're lying in bed before you jump out of bed in the morning, or 5 minutes before you go to sleep, but just a little bit of time when you're not doing anything.
One of my favorite positive interventions is keeping a gratitude journal. It's so simple, and it has powerful ramifications throughout your entire day. And if you do this for 3 weeks, even 6 months later, there's a change that's been noted scientifically and proven. So it's very simple, and what I did was I brought my gratitude notes from this morning. It says, today I'm grateful for a big blue sky with lots of clouds, being able to take a shower, and eating a delicious fruit salad. So I keep these cards on my night table and just do this exercise before jumping out of bed and starting the day. And centering, as we saw with the breathing or with this gratitude exercise, can take less than 2 or 3 minutes, and it really sits with you and stays with you the whole time. The next point we want to make is temporarily leaving the caregiving role behind. It's such a relief to have some space in your workday or your week where you don't have to be a caregiver. In fact, it's really exciting.
It can be very liberating to be anonymous, to go somewhere where nobody knows you, nobody's going to ask you questions about your child or your life, and you just get to start over and do whatever you want.
So pace yourself. It's wonderful to escape into a good book or a movie or a nap or another distraction, and never feel guilty. Know that this is going to give you that extra stamina for your child and for yourself.
We're now going to talk about soothing all of your senses. Caregiving over a long period of time can make you numb. For this reason, it's important to engage and appreciate all of your senses. For sight, it's important to create a calm environment through healing visual elements. Eliminating clutter can make a big difference. Give yourself the freedom to use colors that you like, that are soothing, or that remind you of fun things.
Smell. Our memory is strongly aligned to our sense of smell, and aromatherapy is wonderful. There's many organic essential oils that you can get at a health food store, such as lavender or peppermint, and they each have different attributes that you will feel immediately. So simply putting them on your temples or your pulse points when you wake up in the morning or before you go to sleep will create a change that you will experience, and they only cost a few dollars. Touch is also one of the most powerful emotions and senses, and one of the questions I always ask people when I travel all around the country going to different hospitals, I say, may I give you a hug? And people say, okay, or not, which is why you have to ask. But the sensation of touching another person body to body and just knowing that you're not alone and having your body touching someone else's body is so, it's so powerful, it's so transformative because it lets people know that they aren't in this by themselves and they're not totally isolated. That ability to be able to give and to receive love or support from a total stranger is very powerful, and certainly from people that you know and love as well.
For sound, music, as we've said already, can transform and lift your mood, but quiet can also be healing and restorative.
You can't always change or fix the situation, but you can control your attitude. And one of our Soaring Words advisors, Dr. Bernie Siegel, and other pioneers in the field of mind, body, and wellness and healing visualization have proven that when a patient has hope, love, encouragement, and support, then he or she has a greater chance of positive outcomes. And there's so many reasons why having a positive attitude is the best way to navigate each day when you're caring for a special needs child.
It's virtually impossible to hold on to both a positive and a negative thought at the same time. Your brain just can't do this well. So when you are struck with negative thoughts, you can choose to focus on something positive. It can be hard, but you can do it. And cognitive behavior therapy is really based on ways to try to help people think about positive issues when they're overwhelmed with negative ones. When you choose to think of positive thoughts, it creates a self-fulfilling reality for you and for the person for whom you're caring.
Expect and celebrate random acts of kindness each day. Someone opening the door for you, or someone calling you out of the blue, or sending you a card. And then if you're open to giving and receiving these random acts of kindness, especially when you're feeling the most down, it will transform your mood. A kind word or a joke, someone giving you a big smile, it's going to give you an instant lift.
We see this, for example, in the parents that come to our clinic. A parent may take time out to tell me how well our student did babysitting their child while we talked. I was recently on a train and saw a person with autism who was asking the person sitting next to them about their glasses, their vision prescriptions, when they went to the optometrist, and the person was very kindly answering these questions. And you can see that there is kindness and thoughtfulness in this world.
And recognize that there's always going to be good days and bad days, so it's really important to appreciate the good days and to really savor them, and then to remember them when you're not having such a good moment at that time.
I think it's also important to realize that if something is constantly frustrating, then it may be time to do something about it. What can you change about something that's just driving you crazy? Can you say, look, this is not good enough. How can I make it better? How can I get out the door on time? If it's constantly frustrating to be able to get everything together and get your child out to school, what can I do about it? And how can I avoid getting myself in situations that are continually frustrating? A technique we've used with people with autism, but I think it actually works for me and for just about anybody, is to not pretend that your worries aren't there. To be able to actually say, all right, I'm going to have a worry jar, and I'm going to write down those worries when I have them, put it in a jar, and then I've got to stop thinking about it. Once a week, I can open up that jar and lay out my worries and assess the situation. But then you can say, all right, boy, that wasn't such a big deal. And this one is something that I've really got to deal with. But it gives you a way to acknowledge you've got the worry. It's not that it isn't real, but that you thinking about it without doing anything is going to do you no good.
There are blessings in caring for a special needs child if you're open to seeing them, and we invite you to find meaning and gratitude, purpose, and resilience each day. The kindness of a wonderful teacher, or people who provide care for your child, taking the time and having the ability to say what's truly important to the people that you love, and being able to forgive things from the past and be gracious in the present. Often being a caregiver can give you a better appreciation for what's truly important in life.
And you can give back to others. A family that we see always brings cookies to our clinic. And these cookies make everyone so happy that they do a better job with the next families that come in. We had a dad that we discovered was pruning the weeds outside of our clinic. We couldn't figure out how it looked so good periodically. And he finally said, I just wanted to do something for you, and this was a simple thing that I can do. And these things do make a difference, both in terms of the actual pruning and cookies, but also the shared joy in accomplishing something with these families.
Our next point is paying attention to synchronicity, the seemingly impossible things or coincidences that show up in your life. And when they show up, and when you're open to experience synchronicity, it tends to happen in greater flow. Perhaps you've thought of a song, and then a few moments later it comes onto the radio. Or if you think about someone that you haven't spoken to or actually thought about in many years, and then you run into them. One of our Soaring Words children, Gabby, is a 12-year-old cancer survivor. And there was a beautiful, poignant, synchronistic story that happened when her parents, Lisa and Lou, were waiting with her as she was about to be wheeled into the operating room. And they turned to the OR nurses, and the father said, what are your names? And the nurse said, well, I'm Lisa, and the other woman said, and my name is Lou. And that just synchronistic occurrence gave them so much hope and strength during her surgery.
Remember that people love you and your child. People don't just love you and your child because of your special circumstances. They love you and your child for who you are, and they may have met you because of the special circumstances, but that's just the key that opened the relationship.
So before the Q&A begins, we want to wish each one of you strength, joy, resiliency, and courage. And please know that we're supporting you in your caregiving journey, in your parenting journey, and sending you tremendous love. So what we'd like to do is invite you to send in your questions and your feedback to HEAL, HEAL, at soaringwords, soaringwords.org. And we will get back to you in response to each and every question. We know that people are listening in from all throughout North America, and we also know that in the future many people will be reviewing and listening into this webinar. But we do have some questions that have already come in. So Kathy, would you like to read the first one and start us off?
Sure. The first question is, in your experience, what is the biggest reason for parental or caregiver burnout of a special needs child? And I thought of two things. One is, I think it's really important to recognize that some circumstances in some kids are much more difficult than others. But often the stress level of families is not that much associated with the difficulty of their child. It has to do with other things. I think what's hardest is when parents focus so much on where they want their child to be eventually and what they want for their child, that they can't take in what the child will learn next and how to get there. And the discrepancy between what they want in the long run and their own desires is so huge that this becomes exhausting for everybody. And that's, I think, the most difficult situation. Lisa?
Well, I think also this notion that you still exist, like making sure you keep yourself in the equation, because as we've mentioned throughout the webinar, that's going to really help your child and going to help you looking at this as a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah, that's right. And I think remembering that if you lose yourself and your child has lost you a little bit.
Right.
And the child needs you as yourself, not just you caring for him or her.
Right. The second question is, what are the quick fixes that you'd recommend caregivers remember to make life more bearable during difficult medical situations?
Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, we think it's really important to be grateful in the here and now and to be present, because so much worrying could happen about tomorrow or the long-term future that really dissipates your energy and takes you away from caring for your child in the present, and also depletes you in the present. And we can't overestimate the importance of a sense of humor that really helps getting through very difficult times.
And I would agree, just taking one day at a time, remembering that things get better. Problems may not go away, but over the long run, our bodies do help us adjust to things. And last, remembering positive moments and being able to savor when something is funny or where someone was very kind.
And also just guilt, just let go of the guilt, because that never helps anything.
The next question is, I manage a lot of people in my job. Are there differences between women and men when they are caregiving for a special needs child? What are the challenges for each gender, and what do you recommend to give the parents and caregivers more strength and support? The reality is that women do end up doing the majority of work in caregiving for special needs children. But I think there are many fathers who do a great deal, and most fathers care a great deal. Women tend to be more realistic and to be more exhausted. So I think what's important is to support women and figure out what can you do to help a mother do this, or a father who's the primary caregiver. One of the interesting things that's been shown in research recently is that one of the most devastating factors for a child with special needs is having a mother who doesn't accept the child. And I think that's partly because fathers are often less directly involved. What was critical for the fathers was to support the mothers and to be there when the mothers need them. And I don't think this is so much gender or someone's sex as just who is the primary caregiver and who provides the backup. So you could reverse that if the father is the one who's doing the most work.
Right.
Lisa?
Also, in a corporate setting, timing is very important. Not 5 minutes before the biggest meeting of the quarter or the biggest presentation of the year to ask the colleague, how's your son doing? Or tell me what's going on with your daughter. So timing is important, and for the parents to be able to say, this isn't really time I want to get into that. But also, could be equally hurtful or odd to not acknowledge the situation if people are going around the room talking about, what they're doing with their kids or soccer or football, to say, what's going on with your son or what's going on with your daughter, to acknowledge that the person does have a child and not bring it up at all, because that also can be very hurtful.
And finally, I think an unfortunate reality is that the services and the support through health insurance for kids with special needs is not consistent and not good. And many businesses could do a much better job advocating for these families when they sign up for insurance packages. There are waivers, and there are ways that businesses can help make sure that kids get the services that they need. And often this falls by the wayside because nobody thinks about the fact that they have employees who have a child with autism or a developmental delay who will need services.
Great point.
The fourth question was, I have a hard time asking for help. How can I get started? I think here, trying to be specific, as Dustin Hoffman once said about acting, to think about, all right, the next time somebody says to me, can I help you? I'll say, yes, you can help me. You could open the door for us, or you could watch my stuff while I take my child to the bathroom. I think thinking through situations where you need help, as we've said before, and trying to think, all right, what could I do so that if this happens again, how can I get others to help me? And finally, practice. It's okay to say, to your husband or your wife, I need to practice what I would say in this situation if somebody asks me if I need help.
And that's so true, because the more you practice, it just becomes second nature to you. And we also recommend starting small, like asking someone, could you cover carpool for me on Wednesdays? Because it doesn't really work. I have to go to PT, and it's just asking. The worst thing that could happen is that the person would say no, but they might say yes. The next question is, my spouse and I differ in how we discipline our child. What are your suggestions? Well, this is a great question, and again, certainly applicable for parents with special needs children, but it also, we want to remind you, it's applicable for any parents, and we want to thank you for asking it. As much as you can, you want to set ground rules between the adults so that the child won't feel that he or she is causing any tension or friction. All children, including special needs children, need discipline and ground rules and boundaries to feel safe, but it's good to maybe just step into the other room or not have that heated blowout discussion in front of your child.
I agree. I think that the critical thing here is the child's perception has to be that the parents are working together and that the parents agree on what the rules are. It's also not fair to leave it to one person. So the child will pick up very early and have a very clear sense if it's, all right, wait till your dad gets home, or mom is the one who catches me doing this and dad doesn't care. Underlying all this, I think the issue is not so much how you discipline, but what and when you discipline. So if one parent is not someone who ever raises their voice, but will put the child in a timeout or say, look, that you really can't do that, and we're going to have to back off and turn the TV off for a minute while you get control over yourself. And another family member does it in a different way, as long as you're responding to the same characteristics in the child and you have the same rules, that makes less difference than what you actually do.
Our last question is, I feel guilty because the siblings of my special needs child often get less attention and are asked to do more around the house. Will this have a long-term detrimental effect on their lives and their happiness? This is another great question. Thank you for sharing it. Actually, if you give all of your children loving attention and individual support, even for a few minutes each day, research shows that siblings of special needs children can grow up to be resilient, independent, and grateful in ways that other children often cannot appreciate.
I agree. The fact is that many siblings of special needs kids go on to be incredibly kind, innovative, and wonderful people who do things differently because of their sibling. On the other hand, I think it is worth remembering that if you give up 1 hour of PT or OT or speech therapy for your child with a disability, that actually ends up being an afternoon because you're driving him, picking him up, and sitting there. And that means that you're missing your other child's entire soccer match that's once a week. That may not be worth it. That extra hour for the child with a special need is not necessarily more important than something very crucial for your other child. Having a sibling for a child with a special needs is one of the most wonderful things that can happen to them. And if that sibling cares about him or her and spends time with him and doesn't resent him or her, then that is really important. So I think parents really do need to balance as much as you can. There's always going to be more demands on your time for the child with special needs. but trying to think about not just automatically responding to more and more, but thinking, how does this fit in our whole family's life, and how can we include the child with special needs in the things that the other child needs is important.
Great. Well, thank you. We're at the end of our program now. So, Dr. Lord, on behalf of Soaring Words and everyone who is benefiting from your wisdom and your expertise, you just have a great way of making everything very accessible and very real. And it's been really a great honor to collaborate with you and fun putting this project together. And for everybody who's here today and listening, again, we look forward to sharing other sessions with you, and we hope that you'll send us an email and visit us at soaringwords.org. We want to thank the JCC of North America. We want to thank CVS Caremark, and not least of all, Fretta Racis, the program director of the 92nd Street Y, for hosting us here today. Thank you.
Thank you.